we know that there's processing that's really good for you. So I see we have some new people here today, and we have some people who were here before. Is there anybody who has a question that needs further explanation about something that we can help with right now? And a few of our teachers are here too. A lot of them have left for assembly. We moved the assembly to the theater so we could do question and answer here. So anybody with a question that we can help answer? Yes, yes.
I have a long question. The one that's really alive at the moment for me is that my husband was recently in Germany for the children to just attend a week's school in the summer. And he said the reaction of the lady who was looking at all the children's transcripts was one which, is really alive for me. She looked at my older son who's in grade 7 with, the A's, and she kind of said, okay. She looked at my younger son who's in grade 5 and said, I can't do anything with this. You just put it aside. She did not even have the time to kind of, read through the system. That's what's kind of really something which is worrying me, the transition, and also whether it would be possible for a school like this. Now, my children are just going through a week, but if this was a real move, and would there be a way that you would be able to translate this into something which would be accepted in schools around the world who are not yet doing this?
I think this is a question more about the middle school profile. That's between for counseling and administration. So I think
First of all, I guess I would have to question if they don't have time to read the
I know that's
or
concerning.
read the report card. I mean, Scott spends all his time reading and translating, and it's often interesting because we will see report cards come to us that are a traditional grade, which looks very straightforward, but then you have to look at the quality of the caliber of the school. I mean, there's a lot of things to look at and to really review if you're a quality school. I don't know what the caliber of that school is. We are working on a middle school profile that's much like accompanies the high school profile. What we wanted to do is spell out clearly the caliber of our students. And so the things we're looking at is what can we put on there that shows, other points of assessment. Like we're thinking we'd like to put on there what's our overall middle school MAP data that would show where our caliber of our students are in the growth that they make as a large group. We were looking at what the high school puts on theirs, and if there's some things that the high school has on theirs that we should include on ours. Even like high school pieces that show, again, the caliber of our school. We want to explain our program. We're in the process of this, and it's interesting because there's an internet group, a principals internet group that international principals, and every once in a while people will send out a question of what do you have about this or what's happening with this at your school. And I sent out a note to all that group, and it's everywhere from South America to Africa to all over the world. And I said, does anybody have a middle school profile that they could share? And nobody had one. And everybody went, can you send us what you put together? Because we really think that would be something that would be helpful for us. And so we kind of feel like we might be breaking new ground on how do we clearly communicate the caliber of our school, the caliber of our program, and the caliber of your child's learning in this process. It's something we're really paying attention to. So stay tuned for more. We're working on it, and a lot of other places are really interested in maybe following our lead. Yes, do you want the microphone?
I'll try to speak louder. I mean, I have a question similar in that line of thinking that it says a lot more in your new reporting system, but it's highly complex. And the reverse is true. What Scott said is when other schools come in, you don't know what goes into it. But when we take these grades to other schools, it's equally complex for them to interpret. And some of the words are open to interpretation. And I'm concerned that, if you say incomplete or zero, it could mean the same thing to somebody else. And then the other thing was that you mentioned that self-assessment was a highly effective way of learning. And I'm not sure if my middle school child can interpret such a complex report so well that he's able to self-assess, because it means, again, it might mean he may interpret that he's doing great at everything, which is not true. And lastly, some of the things are concerning in terms of how this is graded. One thing which I've had trouble do well, okay, we'll regrade you. And I'm not sure if that's helping or hurting to a certain point. And other things like, if you don't submit an assignment on time, it's like, it's not an issue. Like, but in real life, I mean, that's an issue.
I think it is an issue. It's just, how do you communicate and where do you communicate that it's an issue? I think it is an issue. And I think a student that doesn't turn in work on time is not responsible. And as a teacher, that's where I would communicate that, and I would put that in my comments to you, or I would email parents and articulate that this is an issue. I just wouldn't reflect it in their learning, because it doesn't actually impact their learning. It could impact their learning if they're not doing their homework and they're not learning. It will translate out in where they struggle in trying to meet the learning target. So I think we very much do believe that is an issue, and we want to communicate it in a different way and in a different place. And your second question, your second question was something that had me thinking as well. Can you repeat what the second question was? Can you repeat the question?
You know, I get some standard-based reports. Sorry,
Stand up.
I get some standards-based reports that are really cumbersome. I mean, this thick, pages and pages and pages. I think ours is what it communicates is really precise in that this is a standard, and these are the things below that standard that we are really focusing on and assessing during this current semester. It could be confusing for schools that have no idea what standards-based grading and reporting is. But if they're aware of standards-based grading and reporting and understand that, we have adopted the Common Core, that information is really easy to find and really easy to understand, if they're meeting that or not. So, and I don't know if that really answered or helped.
No, it's just that sometimes, I'm thinking even some of colleges when you apply coming out of high school, the first screen that is put, or the first filter that is put in the selection process doesn't drill down that deep into what the students' traits are. It's just really, are you an A student or B student?
And I would
If you
say
don't get
that,
past that,
yeah.
then the further information is.
And I would say that's why, each school is looking at this from their own perspective. From a middle school perspective, what seems developmentally appropriate, do we value homework? You bet we value homework. Are we going to hold kids accountable for homework? You bet we're going to hold kids accountable for homework. That's not changing. And that is really important pieces to give kids and help them develop before they get to high school. Because that's where the rubber really meets the road for them, for everything that is going to get them into that next step, which is probably university for everybody here. So, and then the other thing I was going to say, the self-assessment.
They fail, they can just resit a math test until they meet the mark.
Well, that's kind of the goal, is that they learn. And so we never want to say, your time is up and you can't learn anymore. I mean, that's, the goal is that children learn.
Okay, like say you have one assessment and if the student doesn't meet the mark, then they have one chance and not 15.
Well, I would agree. What's your goal for your child? Do you want them to learn it, or do you want them to have one chance? Because here's what you are not maybe seeing, is that my son reassesses, but he has to do a lot of work between those reassessments to learn what he has not yet learned or understood. And it's important to me that he does understand those. If those are things that he should know in 7th grade, it's not okay for me to say, well, you got a D on that and that's it. It's important for me that he's got to be ready for 8th grade. And if he didn't get it the first time, then maybe I need to try a second time or a third time. He's got to get it. It's just like homework. I'm not going to say, you get a 0, then forget it, we're moving on to the next assignment. If we're giving an assignment, we value it. It's important, and that child needs to do it. Otherwise, what kind of assignments are we giving? We spent time looking at our homework policy a couple of years ago and really saying what's appropriate for middle school kids. But also, we wrote in our handbook, we will only give homework that we think has value, that enriches that learning or introduces that learning or something like that. So I hope that helps you understand. It's the quest for that goal. And we really believe every kid